I am. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Guerrilla Prince Speaker Series. Today's installment is with the lovely Miss Noelle Magann. I have a quick bio that I'm going to read about Noelle, and then Derek is going to say a little bit about who we are, and then we're going to start our presentation. Um, Hi, Noelle. You ready?
Yep.
Noelle Magann is a sports marketing professional with a wide variety of experience in college athletics and professional sports. Beginning as a recruit herself through her high school athletic career, and then working for the recruiting department at Coastal Carolina University for the football program, she has experience on both sides of recruiting and deeply understands what it takes to get recruited in college football. While attending CCU, she also studied name, image, and likeness legalization and programming, even being invited to present her research at multiple marketing and research conferences. This led Noelle to taking on a position at the University of South Carolina Athletics, working in the newly formed Name, Image, and Likeness Department. While there, she worked closely with several athletes, teams, and collectives to develop programming to benefit the athletes, as well as improve relationships and benefits for athletes with local businesses, national businesses, and collectives. After serving in this role for 7 months, Noelle left to start her own business so that she could work to benefit athletes even more at all levels, sharing her knowledge and working to make a better lifestyle for all athletes at all levels. And so we thank you, Noelle, for taking the time to speak to us. We are excited to hear what you have to say. Derek, do you want to say anything before we let Noelle tell her story?
Yeah, cool. Just really quick. First off, thank you, Noel, for doing this. I think what you have to offer is golden, and I hope everyone gets out their notepads and really take some notes. For anybody that's on here that doesn't know who we are, Gorilla Prince, right? We're strength and conditioning and educational consulting company to help athletes achieve their goals, looking to get to where it is that they want to get to, which in turn, why it is that we have this speaker series, because Kim and I understand that we have to bring in people that are on the front lines, so to speak, that are going through it, these are the people that you would eventually come in contact with at some point in time. So if we can figure out a way to bring these people to you, then that's what we're going to do, and that's what Gorilla Prince is all about. It's all about continuing to help the family get to where it is that they need to get to, um, and just walk them into their goals. Right? We understand that there's hard work involved, but if we can do something that can help you get there and make the hard work, just a little bit more comfortable, then we're going to do it, and we're going to find the person or the people that can help us get the message to you if we don't have the answers ourselves. So, without further ado, I'll let Noelle take the floor and give us the nuggets that she has to offer.
First, thank you for having me and for the awesome bio reading. I feel special and I even helped write that. Um, but yeah, just a few things. I'm gonna minimize this over here so hopefully you guys can see the whole screen this whole time. Um, I have plenty of info on here. I'll be speaking even more of it. And then I'll make sure everyone, like y'all can have a PDF version of this after I'll get that over to Kimberly and Derek so they can share that with everyone as well. And there'll be different things on here, websites, and you can find me on LinkedIn and always reach out. I'll go through some tips and some stories, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A because I think that's going to be a lot more important. so that I can answer specific questions, especially after I talk through a few things. But this is my new company, Amateur Marketing and Management. I named it that because the background of the word amateur came from the French word to love. And I think the most important part of being an athlete is that you love your sport. And I wanted to get back to that with the athletes I work with. By the time you're getting to really competitive upper high school and then into college and pro, it's a very, very crazy industry for an athlete. And it can go so many ways. But at the end of the day, every athlete came to their sport because they love it and they love sports. And I've heard so many stories from so many athletes that I've worked with over the years that I really wanted to kind of capture that within my business. And that's what I try to use to drive everything that I do. I do a lot of different things for a lot of different athletes, but tonight, of course, we're focusing on recruiting and NIL. So a little bit more about my background. I don't know if anyone will actually be able to scan the QR code or not, but if you can, it should take you to my LinkedIn. But when I was in high school, I was recruited for golf mainly at the D2 and NAIA levels. I used a recruiting service in CSA, if any of you have heard of it. They were very, very nice. They helped me a lot. They helped my family a lot get through the process and understand what I needed to do to get recruited. And then, much to my parents' dismay, I ended up deciding that I did not want to play college sports anymore because my number one priority when picking a school was my ability to study abroad. I've always wanted to go out of the country. At that point, I'd only been out of the country once on a mission trip, and I really wanted to study, even just for a few weeks, mainly in Europe. That was what I wanted. And every college coach I spoke to said that would not be possible because we would be playing golf all the time and I wouldn't be able to do any internships. And in the end, I knew that I was not going to be going pro in golf. And even if I did, I would not be making much money. So I shifted. I went to Coastal Carolina University for my undergrad, where I worked in football recruiting and operations and athlete management, player development, lots of things. For 2.5 years. While I was there, we were ranked in the top 25 the entire time at multiple different levels. We played BYU for a very last minute game. If anyone's ever seen it, if you haven't, it was actually a really cool game. That was College Game Day's first time visiting Coastal. So that was a huge deal. We had a lot of other really big successes within the football program throughout that whole time. So I got to experience both very traditional group of five recruiting and group of five recruiting at a much higher level throughout those years. And then towards the end of my time there, we got a new coach. So I went through the entire coaching staff change process. And that's also very important experience that I think I have. Not everyone gets it, but it is something that is important to prepare for and to just know about. So then after I graduated, I left and went to the University of South Carolina to get my master's. While I was there, I worked in the NIL department and did a little bit of football recruiting as well for them, mainly in the summer. And then I stuck with NIL, worked in that for about 7 months. And then in January, I finished up and I left to start my own business, which is Amateur. I mainly work with individual athletes that are at a high level. They're all adults. So mainly right now, lots of Team USA bobsled athletes. I've done things with Formula One drivers before, and their teams, consulting and helping all of these athletes develop personal brands. But then at the end of their time as an athlete, they can use to be a creator, to get jobs. Some they want to be a realtor. So I help them with making sure that while they're doing their sport, they don't have to work multiple jobs. They can go on, things like that. So a lot of variety here. I've been all over the place, but a lot of really good experiences. And I'll definitely take more questions at the end if you have any about this. First, when I was speaking with Derek about this kind of program in my experience, part that really stood out was in the Coastal Football Recruiting Office, we had this pyramid that showed the amount of high school athletes there were, then how many made it to college and how many made it to the NFL. And I really think it's important to share because it helps you understand the situation that you might be trying to go into if you're, helping your son get recruited for football. It is a very, very skinny pyramid that gets smaller really fast. So at the high school level, there's a little over 1 million student athletes right now in 2023 numbers that were playing high school football of some sort. That led to 77,000 in college. So it's a much, much smaller number. And that's both scholarship and walk-on. So if you're competing with 1 million other kids to try and get these 77,000 spots, it can be hard. And it's definitely a process with a lot of ups and downs, but it can be really rewarding. I think that, don't take this as it's not possible, because it definitely is possible for anyone who tries, but you definitely have to work hard at it and do the right things, help yourself stand out, because that's a lot of people you're competing with. And then from college to the NFL goes from 77,000 or so to a little less than 2,000. And that is, again, like a much smaller number. And that includes practice squad and things. It's a rough estimate of how many athletes are in the NFL right now. But yeah, it is a very, very tight path and journey. But if you're going to be on it, there are many, many ways to help you stand out and help you get to this point other than just skill. Yes, you need to be good at football, but I've seen some guys who weren't great at football that still got onto teams and got scholarships and such because they stood out in other ways. Again, this is a slide that I definitely want to make sure you all get afterwards, because it's long. Sorry about that. If you're taking notes, I tried to break it down. But if your children are still in middle school, the most important tips are to seek out that additional training and coaching. So like Guerrilla Prince or something like that, where they can get the extra training, make sure they're starting off right. It does not need to be insanely intense by any means. They don't need to go train to be a Navy SEAL, but getting that extra training, extra coaching to help them develop their skills while they still have a lot of time to figure out if they even enjoy football or if they want to try other sports. A lot of recruits I've seen, they try track or basketball or plenty of other things, and figuring out which one do you like more. And then, of course, always focus on your studies. I put that everywhere. But academics really, really matter. If anyone tells you they don't, they are crazy, because academics truly matter. You don't have to have a 4.0, but you do have to be in good standing to even just get into the school. There's only so much athletics can do to help you. And then freshman year of high school, start identifying your goals, what schools, football programs you want to attend. Maybe if you're a dual athlete, you're looking at schools that are good at both, that would potentially take you at both. Kind of figure out what position on the field that you want to play, which do you enjoy. There's plenty of athletes who I met they were in their freshman year and they played quarterback, wide receiver, running back, linebacker, safety, corner. They're just all over the place. And that's great. It shows that you have a lot of different skill and a lot of athleticism, but you're eventually going to want to define what position you like. So just try them out, see what's good. Again, focus on your studies. Always focus on that. Sophomore year, it's really important to start attending camps at schools and programs that you want to visit. So most schools have coaches. The head coach puts on coaching clinics and puts on camp days, prospect camps. Definitely sign up for a couple. You do not need to, go travel the whole continental United States in an RV and hit everything, but go to a few and see how it goes, see how you like them. They'll put you through college drills. You'll get to hear tips from college coaches. They are very willing to give you advice and tips on your skills. There's some schools that do massive prospect camps that have 20 to 30 schools that attend. Their coaches are all there. And then other schools like Coastal, we just did ours. And maybe 2 coaches from nearby schools would come by, but not a whole lot. So figure out which ones you want to attend, prioritize a little bit, just because you don't need to spend the money going to all sorts of them. And then ensure you're getting good film. I watched a lot of film in my 2.5 years recruiting at Coastal, and the interns are always going to be the first person who sees your film. and they're watching film for 12 hours a day on a computer, and they are miserable. If your film is fuzzy or grainy, or if we can't see you, or if it's just hard to deal with, you're not even going to get watched. And that is a horrible reality. But just, when you're talking to the coaches at your schools, ask them, like, make sure they have a huddle account, make sure that your children have a huddle that's easy to find. It's attached to their name that the schools have. So there would be people that would put their nickname on a huddle account. Don't do that. We cannot find you. If we cannot find you, we're not going to try very hard unless you come and just absolutely blow every coach's mind at a camp. We're probably not trying very hard. But we watch a lot of film. So making sure that we can just see who you are, see your number, it's clear. That really helps. Getting full games on huddle is also important. Highlight reels are cool, but we know that they only show us the best parts. So we're looking for a full game. Most coaches, high school coaches, will do that. Or if you go boarding school route, they definitely are very good at that. But it's just something to check on and make sure that your child has a good huddle account. Junior year, attend junior days that you're invited to. Summer camps and clinics, the same thing. If you get invited, definitely try your best to go, because that is a big deal. We don't invite every single recruit to a junior day. You can only do maybe a couple hundred at a time, and you only get to do so many junior days. So definitely try and attend if you get invited. That's very important. You'll get to talk to coaches. You'll get to talk to the staff. You'll see the interns running around. And it's very important to try and talk to everyone. And of course, be very nice, put on your best behavior, because they pay attention. That's like a job interview, just with 200 other people. And learn as much as you can. We go through academics, we go through nutrition, strength and conditioning. We go through every detail that we can at a junior day at most schools. So that's really good place to learn and see if you like the program. And if you don't, no harm. Like, if you don't like the program, you don't like it, and that's okay. But it's a good place to learn. And then the same thing about getting film, the entire game, every game you can, just make sure that it's being put up there. Scores are also important. We go look and see what your stats were and what your scores were. But if that high school is not available on Max Preps, and it's not available in the local news, we can't find it, and we have no idea if you did good or not. So for parents, a really good tip is, if your child has a Twitter account, after every game, post their stats. Make sure you're posting accurate stats, okay? Like, don't post something that's not true, but that really helps if we can't find it on Max Preps. And most recruiting departments have a gigantic spreadsheet of their top recruits, and they keep track of that for every week so that coaches have access to it. So that really helps, the little details. And then make sure your GPA is as high as you can get it. I didn't like math in high school, but I was getting B's and things, and that's good. Like, that still stands out. You don't have to be perfect. Not everything has to be a 100. I don't think that is very logical. It's probably not going to happen, but get them as high as you can. Don't slack off on the education. That's just very important. They are looking at your grades. They will get your grades from your school to make sure that they're actually good, and that you can, if you apply, get into the school. If you have a 1.0 GPA, there's nothing the athletic department can do to get you in. And yes, sometimes that gets reported in the news, but it's really not how that happened. So just be very, very cognizant that the grades do matter, and just, trying your best, make it as good as possible. And then senior year, take official visits. If you get invited on an official visit, you have a set amount by the NCAA of how many you can go on. So prioritize which programs are your favorite, but definitely go. You will be treated like the most important person ever. If you're not treated that way, don't go to that school. But most of the time, we're asking you your favorite snacks, your favorite things to do, and we're building this entire program around you and your family. And the school pays for the athlete and a certain amount of parents, depending on school and NCAA rules that are changing. They pay for you to come. They'll pay your flight, or your gas, and they'll pay the hotel, like everything. It'll be a nice hotel. One of my favorite things of how you can figure out if you are really liked by that school is we would ask what snacks everyone wanted, and we would ask what your favorite snack was, what your favorite food was. We had a guy one year who said his favorite snack was a chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A. And we debated, does that really count as a snack? But we would go grocery shopping and get everybody's favorite food, and we would take it and put it on the beds in the hotel before everyone got there. And we wanted this guy so badly that when he got picked up from the airport, I left the hotel, got him that chicken sandwich, and we brought it back and put it there so that it would be fresh. And when he walked in, there was a Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich waiting for him because we wanted him so badly. We would pay attention to every little detail. Someone the next year put the same thing. We did not care as much about him, so we did not go get him a sandwich. That's kind of a way you can tell. Don't always put chicken sandwich as your favorite snack if it's not, but putting your thing on there and just pay attention. Does the school actually do that? Did you get the things that you said you liked if they asked? That's definitely an important one. All levels from Power 4, Power 5 to Group of 5, they all do that. They all do the same thing. This is a good way to tell with details. And then finally, make your decision wherever you feel most at home. It's a decision on where you feel best, academically, athletically. Make sure you like the coaches. Do know that they could change eventually. Pay attention to the news, like if that head coach is being considered for other jobs, but definitely go where you enjoy it and communicate with the school and the program to make sure that everything's going well. We've had guys that a week before they were supposed to move in, they never sent their academic information, and we're scrambling to get them in. And we were able to help at that point, but it's hard and it makes people annoyed at you. So don't get yourself off on the wrong foot right when you get there. A few more kind of recruiting tips. These are for any kind of age you're at. This just applies to all. Standing out in a good way. We at prospect camps, I was usually the one running the check-in table because I knew every single name on the 600 person long list of who was going to be there. And so I would kind of just be managing as people got checked in. And one year we had a kid come up to us with a business card, and his business card was like a miniature resume. It had his GPA, it had what position he played, it had where to go find his film, it had all his social media accounts, it had some important stats like height and weight and things. And that was the first and only time any recruit handed me a business card with that information. And we were so blown away because it was so well put together, and he was so nice when he came up and gave it to us. And he knew every bit of information we needed. He was not on our radar. I took the business card and a couple extras down to the position coach for him and said, hey, look what this kid brought. We love this. And the position coach loved it. He thought it was great. I wrote on there what number the kid would be at camp that day. And that kid, who was never on our radar, and he was mediocre at football, ended up with a walk-on offer at the end, and he got to come on an official visit and things like that. So that seriously, just that one little thing helped him stand out so well. And he was such a nice guy. His parents were super, super nice, super helpful. They were very communicative and responsive, and we loved them. He's one of my favorite recruits we ever had. So yeah, standing out in a really good way like that is super important. Don't just send an email or a Twitter DM. Like, when you're there in person, make sure that they notice you for good reason. The next one is social media. That's a big issue in times. Make sure that you stand out. It should be about you, but also it needs to be very clean. We would take our top 200 recruits every week and go through their Twitter, and we interns had to scroll through their Twitter for the entire week and write a report on every single thing they posted. So if they posted that they visited another school, we wanted to know. Or if they posted inappropriate things. There were a lot of inappropriate things that I wish I hadn't seen, but I did, and I had to write those kids up in the report that was there. Or if they got blocked for posting inappropriate content and things, we had to write that down, and they typically were not recruited much after that. because they were posting really bad things on their social media. So don't think that the program isn't looking, because they are. Some programs may have different levels of how much they care about what's getting posted. Most of them won't really care a whole lot about political unless you're saying something that is outright hateful or things like that. And they're not going to care if, you're posting that you went to a baseball game. They're going to be like, oh, cool, they like the Dodgers. I don't know. Or they like the White Sox or the Red Sox or whoever. Those are little notes that will remember, but those are great. Definitely post that, but just make sure that it's all clean. Try to limit how many cuss words you're posting on there. Don't post like, hateful symbols or images or things. And that sounds very common sense, but it's not for everybody. Or for a high school kid, they post something they think is cool and it gets them in trouble. So that's a really important one to remember, because every recruiting staff is looking constantly and they're taking notes, and they keep the notes forever, and they'll remember that even if you're trying to come in as a transfer 2 years into your college career and you posted something weird as a freshman, they'll dig it back up. They'll go find it. And then finally, like when you're standing out, professionalism kind of goes back to the business card, but just the way you act, right? Like just reaching your hand out to shake someone's hand, no matter who they are. Because if the interns or the on-campus recruiting staff remember you, that'll make its way over to the player personnel who are watching the film. That'll make its way over to the coach. If you're only paying attention to the position coach or the head coach, everyone else is just they're not going to pay attention to you. And that coach is probably not going to remember, because he met so many people that day and has so many other things going on. Whereas interns, on-campus staff, their job is to get to know you and make sure that we're keeping a good relationship. So just saying hi to everyone, being very nice. You don't have to go out of your way to shake everyone's hand. You'll probably stand out. But just, being very nice and professional while you're there. Don't be over in line getting water and cussing at people. That's going to be a red flag really quickly. Things like that. Next is relationships. They are so, so important. Like every industry, everything in life, relationships are important. We are paying attention to how the recruit is speaking to their parents, or how they're speaking to a sibling or whoever's with them. The same as we're paying attention to how the family's speaking to them. If everyone's yelling at each other the whole time, we're probably going to be like, well, he doesn't run a fast enough 40 for us to care. It's all sorts of random little things. Your skill will not always outrank how your impression was given to the staff. So make sure that, everyone as a whole, the whole family is there on their best behavior. Now, if you have little kids that are coming, like, 5 years old, we get it, but this is probably not the most fun thing for them. We know how it is, but definitely just make sure the recruit themselves, they're putting themselves out there, they're speaking very nicely and professionally, very clean. Same as the parents. If you take a phone call and you start cussing someone out on the phone, we're probably looking at you kind of concerned. Your private business is your private business, but if you're gonna do that, you should probably go outside of the building. Just little things, just again, common sense, but a lot of people just don't think about that in the moment. And then teams and coaches. That's your high school coaches. Make sure that you are in a good relationship with them. We talk to them. We're going to talk to them. We're going to need them to be able to communicate with your kids sometimes. So making sure that they are able to contact you, and as the parent, make sure you're staying in the loop, because high school coaches sometimes maybe they aren't keeping you in the loop, and you definitely need to know what's going on and what college coaches are coming to talk to your kid. That's important. And the same thing with like outside coaches, like what Guerrilla Prince is doing. We talk to them too. If we know that you have someone like that and we have a relationship there, we're going to go ask them, hey, how is this kid in training? How does this kid act in the weight room? Do they care? Are they messing around? Are they constantly late? Don't do those things, right? Like always act professional wherever you are, and have fun. We want to see guys that are enjoying themselves. Football is supposed to be fun, but be on time, come ready, come prepared. things happen, if something's going on, making sure that you communicate everywhere. And the same with the other guys on their team. If you're a leader on your team, that stands out. And we're going to look at you a lot more than we might look at someone who never talks to their team and their team doesn't like them. We find out those things. Your personality is going to stand out, and we're going to ask about that a lot. And we're going to ask a lot of people about that. And then the recruiting department, those are the people who are recruiting you. It looks like the coach is recruiting you, but it's really interns and a few player personnel people, depending on the size of the school. But interns, seriously, are always going to be the first ones to see your film, and they're going to be the first ones to watch it and write evals and take it to player personnel and the coach. And then those people will go watch your film. So yeah, and recruiting, we're going to be the people picking you up at the airport most of the time. We're going to be the ones at the hotel. We're going to be the ones taking you out to dinner. The coaches are around, but they also have the players to worry about. Recruiting does not. They are solely focused on your family and your student athletes coming in. So make sure that both the athletes and as parents, you're communicating. If they're reaching out to you, try to get back to them as soon as you can. Be very, very helpful, very nice, however you can. If we're asking, hey, what airport do you need to fly out of? Tell us. Don't just say, oh, anything, because then we might book you a ticket that's way further away and much more inconvenient. We want to help. We want to do the best by you because it goes both ways. And those are the people that can go speak to a coach about your personality, about your family, about interests you have. I gave over 500 tours in my time at Coastal. So I was with the recruit and their family. If the recruit sat on the back of the golf cart and never spoke, that coach found out. He would say, "Oh, let's head inside," and he's sticking behind to ask me, "How did that go?" And I'm saying, "Well, I don't know if the kid paid any attention or not. The mom was great. The mom was so nice and asked plenty of questions, but recruit didn't do anything." And the coach pays attention to that. So make sure as a recruit, you're asking questions. Parents always ask questions. Like, this is where your kid's considering going to school. So definitely they are there to answer your questions, and no question is silly. They want to help. And even if you have a question like, oh, I'm visiting Penn State this week, but we were at Michigan last week and Michigan told us XYZ. Do you guys do that? That's a totally fine question to ask. We know that other schools have other stuff going on. Maybe they're better at the academics that your child wants to go into. Maybe Michigan has a better engineering department than Penn State. I have no idea, by the way. But like, ask those things. They're gonna tell you the truth. We're not gonna tell you that we have a great engineering department if we don't. We're gonna tell you if that's more important to you, go somewhere that does. Because most of the time, the recruiting department that is doing tours and things with you, yes, they care, but also we really care about you as people and want you to go to the best place possible. And then contact, phone, Twitter, and email. If you call the office, you are probably not going to get anybody on the phone. We would look at the phone and wait until it stopped ringing. We never answered our office phone. I think I answered it twice. And we knew people were calling, but if we actually took the time to answer the phone every time it rang, we would never get any other work done. It's just absolutely crazy. So don't waste your time calling the recruiting office. You're probably not going to get anyone. Twitter is very popular in college football recruiting. I personally don't love Twitter for my athletes now, but it's very, very important with college football recruiting. Post your film on Twitter. You can send a DM to a coach, but also recognize that a million other people are sending DMs to coaches. And there are people like myself. When I was working there, I had Twitter and it was public, and I posted about our camps and things, and people sent me film too. I woke up one morning and had 80 DMs from just overnight, and it was all film from kids. I did not get through any of the film. I didn't watch any of it. It's all still unread on my Twitter, and it's been a year and a half, 2 years since then. So also keep in mind that you can send the DMs, but that doesn't mean they're going to see it. I would recommend, if you're sending out DMs with your film, keep it simple. tell us your name, where you go to school, what positions you play, height, weight, important stat related to whatever your position is, and then your film. And that's it. Just keep it simple, say the important things. That's what we need to know. We don't need to know that your favorite color is green. If we care, we'll ask you later. But tell us the important stuff, and that way we can immediately see. And if we're like, oh, that's like a great height, weight, and stats for this position, well, let me watch and see if he's good. Or, oh, I know that's a good school. I know they have a good football program at that high school. I'll watch his film. And don't be afraid to send it again, but also don't send it every day. I had kids that would message me every single day. And that's kind of a clue that you're probably not paying attention in class if you're sending me a message at like 1 o'clock every afternoon. Um, and so yeah, just maybe once every couple months, or if you had a big game, say you got 4 touchdowns, then send that message again. Like, hey, I had a great night, wanted to share my film from last night with you. I got XYZ, it was great. And they'll probably pay more attention to that. And then email. You can find most coaches' emails, but they don't check them. You might get lucky. Some do, or some might reply. But most of the time, if they see an email from a parent or a recruit, they're probably going to delete it or just never open it and never look at it. And their emails have like 900 notifications because they are so busy with other things. They're not checking their email for that. Your best bet to try and get recognized by a school is physically attending campus for those prospect camps, or make sure whatever high school, boarding school, whatever you're at, that they're getting good film, and that their coach has pretty good connections around. That's how we do a lot of things. Twitter DMs and email, sometimes you'll get lucky. There might be days where it was slow and I didn't have any tours to give, and it was like the middle of June and we didn't have a camp, and so I would go look at a few bits of film from my Twitter DMs. But most of the time people are not going to have the time to look at that, especially if you're at a group of 5 level. There's only so many people on staff. So yeah, I would like recommend player personnel. That means recruiting and film. Those are the best people to reach out to because that is literally their job. If you're looking at on-campus coordinator, they plan events. They don't watch film. So that's a waste of time. They're not going to watch it. They're not trained to watch it most of the time. If you're sending to a grad assistant or a position coach, toss up. It's worth a try if you have it on there, but again, make sure that your social media is clean if you're going to use Twitter. Make sure your email is like normal and professional and not hellokitty12@gmail.com, because we're probably going to laugh at that name and not watch your film. So just all around, keeping things professional, keeping them clean. Going into just a few NIL tips before I wrap up and let everyone ask questions. I not only researched NIL, but I worked in it at the University of South Carolina, and I researched all throughout Sunbelt and Group of 5 different kinds of programming. But for the place that all of you are at, the most important things are to understand your state law, whatever state you live in. Try to get a hold of the state law and read it. If you Google New York NIL state law, it'll come up and you're able to read it, and make sure you understand what the specific rules are in your state. Maybe you're not allowed to do it in high school. That's really important to know. I don't know what New York's laws are, but also looking at agents and representatives. If someone comes up to you or your son and says, hey, I'm an agent, I want to represent you and get you deals while you're in high school, carefully vet them. Make sure that they are registered with the state, that they have followed the state law to the way they need to, and that it's not just some random old Joe down the road, because you can get in a lot of trouble. Your kids can get in a lot of trouble. That person can probably get away from the trouble, and you're left on the bad end. So definitely verify them. And then representative versus agent. There's not a lot of difference, but agent is typically someone who works alone. Some work with companies and agencies, but most of the time they work alone, and you really have to vet them. A representative might come from an agency where it's already existing, so you know that they're cleared, you know that they're good. Just little things to look out for. And then personal branding. This is huge, even as high school, middle school, whatever age. If you're gonna have social media, like I said before, you have to keep it clean, but also make sure it's showing your personality. Don't worry about the likes. If you're in middle and high school, it really doesn't matter. Don't worry about how many views you get. If you go viral, that is awesome. Good for you. But make sure that it represents who you are as a person, because that matters much more than having just all sorts of random things on there. Recruiting departments are looking at it. If you're thinking about NIL, businesses are going to go look at it, and they want to make sure that it's authentic to who you are and that it's clean, that it's professional, things like that. If you get approached about a deal, make sure you understand the difference. Small businesses are great, no matter what level you're at, what age you're at. I don't think anyone here should probably be seeking them out, because there's a lot of chaos with that. But small businesses are really good. Large campaigns, be very wary if someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, we're doing a campaign across the whole country and with high schoolers to represent Nike sneakers." They're probably not. So make sure you check into those people. Just continually verify. If you have a friend who's a lawyer, send it to them. If you don't have a friend who's a lawyer, maybe find one if you can. That'll help you out, or ask around. Most of the time, you can ask around and find somebody who knows somebody who can help, and just make sure that you're never sign anything. I had high school recruits come up to me at Coastal, and their parents were like, "Hey, I just don't understand NIL. Someone approached us the other day wanting to give my son a car and said he didn't have to do anything for it." And I was like, "Do not sign that. Do not sign any contract. Don't do that. Don't let your kid do that. Tell them not to sign anything without you being present, without you having been able to read it. Um, if you need to, if this is happening, tell the school. Don't let anyone sign anything. Um, because there's a lot of people out there that aren't professional in this kind of industry that are just trying to take advantage on a chaotic moment. And NIL still very much is chaotic. But then when you're looking at colleges and football programs, definitely find out about their NIL department, collectives, what they do. NIL departments are very different from school to school. So, ask, are you helping with finances? Are you helping with taxes? A lot of schools forget to help with taxes, and that becomes a problem. Do you have lawyer resources? Is my kid going to be taken care of? Is someone here who can help them read a contract? Things like that. Is there a collective? Like, are they going to work with one? All sorts of things. That's super important to just ask. Just make sure that you're finding out details there. Most of the time, they'll probably give it to you anyway. But if they're not, definitely be finding out more in that area. That's really all I think is important for NIL, for the stage everyone is at here. Just make sure you read everything and you're looking at it and you get someone else to read it and make sure it's legal, because there's so many people out there that are not doing this for the right reasons, and they're definitely trying to catch people out. This is kind of my slide. I'm kind of wrapped up with tips, and then I'll answer questions, but I do offer additional support like one-on-one meetings and things in recruiting, NIL, social media, personal branding. This has my LinkedIn on here to scan. You can also get my email off of here, my website, amateurmm.com. You can email me through that, and we can send out more information afterwards. Of course, definitely willing to help out any way. Feel free to reach out and ask any question. But yeah, I'm done. So I'll open it up to Q&A. Let me figure out let me stop sharing so I can see people asking questions. But yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Noelle. That was a lot of information. Does anybody have any questions? I know I have one.
Yes.
Go ahead. Des, go ahead. First,
Thank you,
say who you are.
Noelle.
Yep.
Thank you, Noelle, for the presentation. It was actually really, really good, a lot of information. But my first question was about film. Now, you mentioned clarity of the film, so I'm sure we all understand clarity. But now when you say film, I know a lot of parents, we can put together, highlight film. Is that the film that a coach wants to see, that a program wants to see, that recruiters want to see, or do they really want to see like a full game, a half a game, a full quarter? Because there's differences. Like we all go on the internet and see these highlight reels, and you might think that a student athlete is super, and then you get him in person, you're like, oh, this kid is real mediocre.
Mhm. Highlight films are definitely important. That's like if you're sending a DM or an email, like that's the film you want to send for sure. But they are going to watch an entire game, especially once your child has been kind of recognized as someone we want to recruit. We will sit and watch their entire game every season. And we're taking notes. And so for Coastal Huddle, we paid for like a special kind of access. And we were able to save different each individual play. So if your child was on the field at that time, we saved it. And then we would make another playlist that was just the plays that maybe they did good or they did bad on. And we were looking at both. If you're making a mistake, we wanted to see, okay, is that something we can obviously coach them out of? Or is this like they truly have like a skill gap here? So I think for parents, definitely trying to get the highlight film and make sure it's clear. That's important. And then the school's responsibility would be more of the full game because they'd be uploading it to Huddle. I've never had a parent who's been able to do a full game on Huddle. I've never seen that end of Huddle. But yeah, that I think both are important and both need to be very clear. And if you're making a highlight reel and you're making like all sorts of lightning strikes around your kid, that's not necessary. Just put a circle. We're cool with a circle because we're just watching it quick and move on. The lightning strikes are kind of fun, but it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like you don't have to go overboard with it.
I do have a question in the chat. Give me a second to pull it up. Come on, chat. There we go. Oh crap. Okay. I'm just going to read it. It says athletes will of course research the colleges of their choice. How much should they mention about what they learned about the school if granted the chance to speak with the coaching staff or other relevant staff at the school? You don't want to sound like you're a teacher's pet, but you want to show you did your homework about the school.
I don't, most of the time, you're not going to come off as a teacher's pet, even if you know a lot. Now, if you went so far as like, what the coach ate for breakfast because you found it on their Twitter, that might be a little too far. But if you know facts about say your kid's into engineering, if you know facts about that program, that's awesome because we're like, oh, you really care. The same as if you know things about the football program, that shows that you care. Most of the time, you're not going to think they're a teacher's pet because no one knows these things and no one's bringing them up. So it really helps you stand out. And we want to know what you care about. We're trying to get to know you just as much as you're trying to get to know us. And so we definitely want to know, and same goes for parents and recruit, either way. I had some tours where recruit and mom and dad and uncle and brother were asking every question under the sun, and I couldn't even answer them all. I'm having to pull over and try and answer every question. And I loved those. Those were great. They would teach me things. And I was like, I go to this school and my dad went to this school, my grandmother went to this school, and you knew more than I did. And that was great. And I would immediately be going back and telling the coach, hey, he knew like this fact that I didn't know. And then I'd have tours where they didn't say anything at all the entire time. And that is so uncomfortable. That is the most painful thing. Even if you don't have a question, please ask a question because you're probably with a college kid who doesn't get paid to just drive around on campus and wants someone to talk to because they've been doing this all day. So yeah, I don't think you would come off as a teacher's pet unless you know like really weird stuff that you shouldn't know about like people personally. But yeah, I even had recruits that knew who I was and they were like, oh, I saw you played golf the other day because there's a golf course on campus, right? And because I tweeted that out and I was like, oh yeah. And we would drive by it because they liked golf. So those were little facts that stood out and we would remember them. And then I could tailor the tour more to them and make sure that I was talking about things they really cared about.
Does anybody else have a question? No? Okay. Well, I have a question, Noelle. All the tips that you gave were so on point and so, well received. I know you are very concerned with football because that's your background, but does the tips that you gave, does that go across all sports in general, or is that which is really football specific?
Those are mainly football specific because football is kind of its own beast in recruiting. Um, Most other sports do not have a recruiting staff. They don't have, all this extra. If you send a track coach an email, that is how you get recruited for track.
Okay.
Like they are answering their emails. Or the same like golf. Like I emailed all the coaches that I spoke to and that's what worked. But football is not the same.
Okay.
I think basketball to a degree is also not the same. But if your kid ends up saying, hey, I like track, I want to do track, I think email will work. Do it. Go for it. If they end up wanting to do soccer, same thing, email. Going to camps and clinics, that's pretty good across the board. Just trying to get in front of them physically. If you can be there and they can see you, and that means they'll remember you better, that gives you a better chance to stand out. That's always the best thing to do if you're able. You don't have to go to every school, like I said, but just a few, get in front of people, and coaches at other schools talk. They will talk to each other. We had D2 schools or Power 5 schools. They're like, hey, this kid really doesn't fit our program, but he fits yours. Have you talked to him? And we're like, oh yeah, like he's on our list, he's on our board. Schools that we didn't compete against. And they'd be like, oh yeah, well, he and his family came and they were so nice. You guys would love them. And so then we would reach out to that kid. They became more of a priority. So yeah, definitely that kind of thing is the same for all, but like the Twitter, the email, those are different depending on the sport.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Noelle, do you think I mean, in talking to all the parents, what would you say is probably the most important thing to help parents navigate the landscape that maybe that you've seen is overlooked and continues to be overlooked, and it's like, hey, like, to where it is that people keep, the same people are bumping their head on the same, on the same doorway, so to speak. Is there something that you can say, like, hey, this, for whatever reason, this just keeps happening, and they just seem to be, just not getting it right when it comes to this part of the landscape, the recruiting landscape?
Don't be a helicopter parent. Don't be your kid needs to send me their film. If a parent sends me film like that's a red flag. We immediately flag that as like, okay, so the kid doesn't care enough to send their own film. A lot of parents, they're like thinking they're helping, but it looks bad because we're looking for your child to stand out and be able to, kind of act for themselves. Now when you're on campus, ask questions. Like we want to hear from you because there's going to be things that you're thinking about that your kid's not going to think about. Especially like in the dorm tour or something, you're probably going to think a lot more about that and stuff, but don't call a coach and say, hey, my kid is great at football, recruit them. You would be astounded at how many do that. And that's the fastest way for us to kind of flag them and be like, I don't think we want them anymore. Because it's just not good. The coaches are busy too. And if a parent is calling, we're like, why is the kid not advocating for themselves? Or we're going to be reaching out to the high school coach at that point because we're curious. We're like, why is this happening? Like, why did they think that was okay? So definitely let your child kind of advocate for themselves, but help them, of course. You can help them type out that message, but make sure it's coming from your kid's account. That kind of thing. if a coach calls, make sure you're there, but also don't take over, conversations. A lot of coaches, they'll ask your child, "Hey, when's a good time for me to call?" And they say, "Oh, right now." They're at school in the middle of lunch. That is not a good time to call. But when they do call, kind of try and let your kid run the conversation a little. If they're getting stuck, answer some questions, but don't answer everything. There's going to be questions that your child needs to answer because it's a bit of a test. It's like an interview. We want to make sure that they care, that they want to be doing this, they want to be here. So yeah, just kind of finding that balance. And it's different depending on, how your child acts. If they're introverted, you're probably going to have to be asking a little bit more, but if they're extroverted, maybe you got to rein them in a little. But yeah, just not hovering around and kind of going the extra of sending their film for them, or don't put a tweet out that is their film and tags every head coach of the teams they like. That's not good. So yeah, just kind of find that balance for yourself and your family and figure out, how that looks for you.
Yeah. No, that was spot on right there, Noelle. That was good. Spot on.
Dealt with many helicopter parents in my time.
I'm sure.
I had a mom tell me I needed to clean the football players' dorm room. And I was like, that's not my job. No, we're not doing that. But yeah,
Wow.
don't be that kind of parent either. Don't say the out there things. If someone's with the recruiting department, they are with the recruiting department. We are not their maid.
Right.
But yeah, they're just random things like that, right? Think about what you're gonna say before you say it. Because not everybody does. And
Right.
you don't want to be the person that stood out for the wrong reason.
There you go. Does anybody have any other questions? Noelle, you were dynamite.
Really quick, I do have one more thing I want to ask. Noelle, since because you mentioned you with recruiting, well, that's part of what you do. You talked about the young student athlete who handed you a business card, with the information on it, and that was so profound. It pushed you guys back.
Mhm.
Are there any other things that, as parents, we could help our children to utilize to make them stand out? Because maybe they aren't, this super athlete, but what type of things like similar to maybe that we can, get them those extra looks, or somebody to like them, more so than liking their talent, but just like them
Yeah,
as a person.
definitely. That was a good one. I still have that business card actually. It's in some of my like office storage stuff, but I kept it. It was just the most I'm blown away. So yeah, that like just a little card with the information because it stood out. Um, the way they act, like if you're taking them to a prospect camp, you're going to be sitting in the stands somewhere, and they're going to be on the field. You're not going to talk to them much. Tell them like when you're walking around, say hey to people. As much as they're comfortable with. But be nice if they see someone working with the team and that's maybe just kind of hanging back against the wall. Go go say hi and introduce yourself, ask what they do. Um, and be kind of prepared with a question. I had one guy, I was standing against the wall, just watching all the recruits make sure they turn their jerseys in because a lot tried to steal. Don't let your kids steal. That is a huge problem in recruiting. Like it would blow you away. That's such a big problem. We had so much stuff stolen. But like I was having to watch and make sure jerseys got returned. And I'm just kind of chilling, watching. There were a few recruits that I knew from we'd been working for a while, so I'd say hey. And I had one come up to me. He put his stuff down and he reached out his hand, shook my hand, introduced himself, asked what I did, and I told him. And he just kind of launched into questions. Hey, what's the school like? Very simple. Or who's your favorite coach in the program? And it ended up being his position coach was my favorite because we just got along really well. And I was able to tell him things that no one else got the benefit of knowing. because he just came up and spoke to me. And most staff at these universities are going to be the exact same way. If you come up and ask them a question, they're going to treat you with respect, because they're like, oh yeah, I'd love to tell you. Like that's my job. That's why I'm here. So that's a big one. That's a good one. Is just kind of introduce yourself to anyone you see that clearly works there, standing along the wall. Sometimes it's hard at bigger universities to know who works there and who's a fan or who's a parent. But just as you go to more, you'll kind of notice more of who's who. Most of the time, they're always willing to help. Interns are going to be your best bet too. Find the ones that look like college kids, because they can tell you what it's really like. We will not hold back. And the same as like players. The players sometimes try to make it sound cooler than it is. Don't, as a recruit, don't spend all your time trying to talk to the players, because then we're like, oh, you're a fan. You didn't stand out that much in camp. You're probably not going to be remembered. Go find the other people that are kind of working behind the scenes. You'll see them carrying things around. You'll see them watching, taking little notes or things. Just kind of be observant. That really helps. And you're going to see them after camp. You can point out and say, hey, I saw that person. I think they're a recruiting intern here. Why don't you go ask? Why don't you go introduce yourself? Like, that's totally fine. You as parents can do that too. Just saying, hey, like, oh, thanks for this opportunity. We're loving it here. Should I know anything about the program? We'll answer. And that's not being a helicopter parent, just like the one question if it leads to a conversation. Another is kind of going back to the question in the chat, like being prepared. If you're invited on a tour, you don't have to know like what you want to major in yet, but have an idea of what the school's good at. So Coastal was really good at marine science. And so when I would ask them, they would go, well, not marine science, because I don't want to do that. And that was good. That helped. I'd be like, okay, we're going to skip the science section then, because I know you don't care about it. They didn't need to see that part of campus. I could be like, well, what are the things you like? And they'd say, oh, football. I'm like, I kind of figured, thank you. But sports management might have been a good way for them to go. So I'd take them by the sports management building and we'd see stuff, or they'd be like, oh, well, my dad runs a construction business and I want to take over when I'm done. Okay, cool. I'm gonna take you by the business school then. We'll talk about the business school. Or they'd be like, oh, well, I want to be a teacher. Like, I want to be a teacher and high school football coach when I'm done. Awesome. We're gonna go to the education building. You don't need to see the other ones as much. It doesn't really matter. So just those little bits of kind of being able to tell us who you are, or even tell us who you're not, helps us tailor it to you so you get a better experience, but also we'll remember that. I had guys who came freshman year for a prospect camp. So they introduced themselves to me. They ended up on our list because they were, decent enough. And over the next few years, I was the one that took them on tours. I was the one they were texting with questions. I was the one that was prepping stuff for them, and they would continue to help me get to know them. And that worked out really good in their favor, because when a coach comes and talks to me about, oh, like, how's your day going? How's the weekend looking? I'm like, oh, well, Aaron's here this weekend. I'm so excited. I love Aaron. He's great. He asks the best questions. He and his family are so much fun to take on a tour. Like, we seriously would claim recruits. I'd be like, oh, Aaron's mine this weekend. No other intern can have him. I love that kid. Like, we will do that because we want to enjoy it too. So just making sure that you're personable, you come a little bit prepared. Those simple things like that, where you don't have to have that physical business card every time for something. Like, that helps you stand out too, is just being personable, being someone we would want to be around. That's the most important. Like, that helps you stand out the best, and just don't do anything really crazy. We also had a kid that climbed up on our brick wall. It's like 7 feet high or something, and he jumped off and he broke his ankle. We were like, why would you do that? Like, what was the point? So many kids, like I said, would steal things. We would take them to the locker room to let them look at all of the equipment that we have. So like t-shirts and cleats and things, gloves, they went missing every time. They were always taken. And there's only like 3 of us, and there's 100 recruits and parents. We can't keep watch on everything. We tried so hard. Things would, like, family photos would get stolen out of players' lockers. For what? And sometimes we would find them later. And if you were a recruit that we found with that stuff later, you were definitely not coming back. You were not welcome back because you're trying to steal. So yeah, just definitely don't let your kids steal anything. You probably wouldn't, but it would amaze you how many try that just because they're like, oh, try and get a pair of gloves. Like that's a cool memento to take home. No, don't do that. We order enough for our players and a few spare. Now we got to go order more because people stole from us. So it really is a big problem. And if we know who did it, like you're not getting to come back and no one will like you. And it'll, bleed into other schools. We'll find that out. So yeah, personable, being a good person, having like the business card stands out. Don't bring them a whole like sheet of paper, just something little. Because most of the time they have their phone in their hand and they have like pockets in their shorts and that's all they've got. They don't want to carry a ton of stuff around. So little things like that. And then just, yeah, being a good person, being nice. That'll always get you, being a nice person always will get you far.
I have a quick question. Having discussions about introverts as well.
Yep.
Do you have like some type of like a dialogue, conversational topics that he could work on, my son could actually work on, just in case he does have a conversation with the coach, so that it's kind of to the point, but not too much to the point to show that you're considering, and at the same time that you're not rambling on and on and on. Is there like an idea of what, I mean, we practice some basic topics like your name, where you're from, like you like chicken or whatever it
Yeah.
is. We stay in that, but I'm not sure if there's a better insight on certain things on to show that you have the eye of the game to help towards that. I'm a person that use a terminology called mental intercourse. It's always good to have mental intercourse with like-minded people, to having discussions about like-minded things. It really becomes very boring once one person is speaking on one thing and you're not interested. So that's the question that I have for you.
I think a good one to have practice is like, tell me about yourself, right? That comes up in interviews for jobs all the time. This is the same way. And when you're talking about tell me about yourself, get, you get the basic, oh, I grew up in New York and I've lived here all my life. Cool. Great to know. I played football. I do track. Cool. Awesome. Like these are things we need to know. And then say, I'm really interested in whatever topic. So for me personally, I'd be like, oh, I love history. I love British history. It's random, but like that's what I like. And that's something that coach can kind of like clip onto. And they're like, oh, well, why do you like that? Like it flows the conversation in a way that, the recruit would like. So if I say, oh yeah, I love like British history or I love Formula One or whatever, and then they ask me another question about that, I feel more comfortable. And then I'll tell them. And it leads to a really good conversation that's natural because it's a topic you already like. So that's a good one. I've had a lot of good conversations with recruits through that, even on things that I didn't know anything about, like quantum physics. I got a whole lecture on that one time. That kid he knew everything about it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is awesome. He wanted to be a NASA astronaut, and he is now. And he knows quantum physics. And I just asked him, tell me about yourself.
So that's like a icebreaker. In other words,
Yeah,
that's an icebreaker. Okay.
that's a good one. And then
I have a
for
whole bunch
some
of notes here.
coaches,
I'm going to my
yeah,
wife,
yeah,
so a whole bunch of notes
yeah.
here.
No, you're good, you're good. I think you kind of have to know the situation you're in. It's like, is the coach a really technical coach or are they a really personable guy? For technical coaches, it might be a good one to be like, what's your coaching style? Or how do you play this thing? Like, so for us, we at Coastal, when we had Coach Chadwell, that was who I first worked under, we did a really weird version of the triple option and it was totally unique and no other school did that. Like there's still to this day no program that ran the same offense we did. So if a kid asked about it, there was no technical term for what we called our offense. We called them like Teal Team 6 or something because we thought it was funny, but like that's not a technical term. They wouldn't have known that. But asking, oh, like, your offense is really unique. What are some ways for that particular position that you run? Like, what are some skill drills that you do that help your athletes be good at that? Because obviously they didn't play like that in high school. So it's good for technical coaches. And if they're, calling you or talking to you, you'd probably know if they're that way or if they're more personable. If they're personable, um, you can probably find something out on their social media about them that's very basic level, right? Not where they went for breakfast, but if they play golf, like at Coastal, we had the golf course on campus. So a couple of them were really into golf. And a recruit would be like, oh, I know you play golf. I know there's a course on campus. Do you like that course? Like, I'm interested in learning golf. Like, would that be a cool place to learn? And it would get the coach all excited. And they're getting to talk about the thing they love, right? So I think knowing which one you're talking to and you can kind of prep that way for that specific person. And that's, don't go crazy FBI skills, but just kind of most of them have Instagram. You just look at it and be like, oh, he posts about he loves to barbecue. Cool. Ask him what his favorite thing to grill is. Like, just little things like that. And that can help break the ice because then that's a conversation that they're really excited to have. Like they love that. So then you don't have to ask a lot. They'll just ramble. And you don't have to worry about rambling. If they ramble, that's on them. Let them go. So I think those are some good ways to kind of attack that. And then the more advanced you are in this process, where you'd be getting a lot of phone calls, you're probably already going to know what you want to major in. You're going to have an idea of what schools you like when you're getting a lot of phone calls. And just ask like, hey, who's a good person to talk to about this? Because the position coach probably does not know all the professors in the communications department, if that's what your kid wants to major in. They don't know. So saying, hey, I know that the program here is really good for this. Who could I talk to? And the coach can then give you those information, and then you're not rambling, but that gives you things you can work on, or think they can introduce you to the academic advisor. Then you've got another connection already ready, and their job is to speak to you. So yeah, it's just kind of figuring out who that person is, and you'll know. Like your kid's not going to get a random phone call. Now, if they don't tell you that you're expecting the phone call, that's a little different. But most of the time, that position coach or head coach has talked to the high school coach already, and they'll know it's coming, and will probably tell you it's coming, and then they'll text the kid and say, "Hey, when's a good time to call?" Recruiting coordinators do it sometimes as well, like the director of recruiting may do it, or a grad assistant may do it. But the same goes for all of them. Just kind of know if, and they'll tell you why they're going to call most of the time. If they don't, just be like, hey, what should I expect from this phone call? Or say, oh, my parents just wanted to know so we could make sure we use the time wisely. And they'll all respect that. There's nothing wrong with asking for a little bit of like, what's the goal with this phone call? Is it just to get to know each other? Do you want to ask me about a game I just had? They might say, oh, well, I've got some exciting stuff I want to talk to you about. That probably means they're inviting you to something. Just things like that. But they'll tell you. They're all regular people. If they don't tell you and if they're being rude, you probably don't want to go there then. But most of the time, yeah, they'll just say, and then you can kind of prep for the different ways they may approach. Any other questions I can answer?
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Noelle, for your insights. Derek, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, no, Noelle, first of all, want to thank you big time. This was great. Which I knew it would be, which is why I wanted to have you so that we could bring you to people that are close to us so that they can get an understanding of some of the things that we continuously discuss with them, but to bring somebody who has actually been there and done it is great. And I can't thank you enough, Kim and I, for for you agreeing to speak and give us the information that you did. Yeah, thank you so much. And everybody here, I hope you guys took down Noelle's information, because she's chock full of information that is definitely necessary as you navigate the process. No matter where you are in the process, I think that the knowledge that she has is very helpful. And it's something that, you know, whether you are on your way to going into the process, or you're in the middle of it, or wherever you're at, I can say personally, you never know enough about the process, because the process is so different for every single student athlete. So any help that you can get, I advise you to get the help, because it's only going to benefit long term, and it'll save you a whole lot of headaches in the long run. So yeah, thank you, Noelle.
Thank y'all for having me. I love telling these kind of stories. So yeah, anyone here, I'll make sure that information can be sent out to you guys as well. But you can just search me on LinkedIn or find my website and reach out to me there, whatever. And yeah, I'm always ready to tell stories and help out. I loved my time in recruiting and NIL and everything. And now the whole reason that I work on my own is so I'm allowed to share these stories and help people, because I like that and I think it's fun. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I thank everybody who zoomed in. I appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys taking the time out. Everyone has busy schedules, work, and all kinds of things going on. So the fact that you took some time out just to hear this information, Kim and I really appreciate it, man.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Well, have a
Thank you,
good night.
guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
All right,
everybody.
guys. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
All right.
All right.